Hey headphone people, welcome back. MrAyrit here, and today I've got, a little bit different headphone setup for you that we're going to review, and this is the, as far as I know, the cheapest on-ear electrostatic headphone that you can get, and this is made by Monoprice, so this is their kind of like portable electrostatic kit. So electrostatic is a little bit different. If you've never heard of electrostatic, it's basically, it's kind of similar to like a planar magnetic driver, but it requires like an energizer instead. Again, I don't know like all the necessary like technical details. They're generally known to be like quite fast and detailed, but maybe on a little bit on the thin side. This is my second electrostatic headphone. I had the Koss system at one point. That was a little while ago. I didn't do a review on it, but I still kind of have a little bit of an inkling of what that sounded like in my head. So I might try to draw some comparisons to that. And then, the other headphone that I've been listening to lately, I just did a review of lately, is the 5XX from Hifiman. And I think that's an interesting comparison for this because I got them for about the same price. So yeah, I'll be drawing some comparisons to that. So anyway, it comes in this nice little kit here. Let's dig into it. Let's see what you get. We'll kind of talk about build and comfort and all that stuff, and then we'll get into sound. So little kit here, and again, it does come with a kit because you've got to have an energizer as well as the headphones. So we'll dig that stuff out here in a moment. Outside of that, it comes with just like a little 3.5 cable to plug into a source, and then it comes with a charging cable because you've got to be able to charge up, and this is just like a USB like a, I don't know, mini, micro, whatever, and a little charging brick because you do have to charge up the energizer because it's meant for portable use, which is kind of weird. Transportable use, maybe, I'm not quite sure. So you cannot use, one of the big gripes with this kit here is that you cannot use the little energizer here while it is plugged in. So you can't just leave it plugged in all the time. You have to charge it, and then you use it, and then you have to charge it again when it runs out. You can't just plug it in and use it. You can see it's just got the 3.5 jack to plug into a source, which I find slightly annoying because you can't just like plug it into like a regular DAC. You have to have like an RCA to 3.5 adapter type of a situation, or you plug it into, your phone. I used it plugged straight into several different DACs. I plugged it into the Apple dongle here, and then I used the shit full of 4 because it has a 3.5 out on it. So I used kind of all those different sources for this, and including up to my Bifrost 2 that I use with it as well. So I'm going to set the energizer aside here, and we'll get the headphones out, and then we will look at them a little bit. We'll get this nice little hard case kit put away. So the headphones here, let's talk about the cable first. You notice it kind of seems to be standard with these electrostatic headphones to have like a flat ribbon cable like this. This is what the connector looks like for it. I don't know if that's, I'm not huge into electrostats, so I don't know if that's compatible with anything else. If it's not, you could probably get some sort of adapter made and things, but honestly, it's probably not worth it for these headphones, and we'll get into that when we talk sound. Yeah, it's maybe like 4 or 5 feet long, and so it plugs in like so. I mean, that's not anything fancy or complicated, right? But then the deal is you gotta then have that 3.5 cable coming out to another thing. So what it ends up being is like, I think it's an interesting choice to make this like transportable or portable because it is like pretty cumbersome to kind of like waller this stuff around. So I was trying to use it like around my house, I'd have to carry this, I'd have to carry the 3.5 cable, and I don't know, I found it to be kind of a pain in the butt, if I'm being totally honest with you. So we'll set that aside here. Let's look at the headphones themselves. The cable is attached. It does not detach, so but again, it'd be hard to find probably a replacement cable anyway. So it does, I think it has kind of a unique, interesting, kind of like retro modern style to it. It is all plastic though, so you can kind of hear it creaking around and things. So the build quality isn't excellent, even though I kind of like the design of it. You know, a little bit of swivel and give here, a little bit of swivel and give back and forth on the cups. It's got pleather padding, which is actually quite nice up here, and on the pads is pretty decent and comfy as well. So I rather like the design. I just wish it was higher quality materials, but it is super lightweight on the head. It doesn't weigh hardly anything. The one weird thing here is I would almost say it's like a semi-open headphone. So I think it's an interesting choice that they went with these pleather pads, because when you put it on, it does isolate to a certain extent, at least some frequencies. So it's a little bit odd in how it's set up, because you can see it's got like a really open, you know, grade on it here, but then it doesn't sound all that open, and it sounds really closed in, which we'll talk about more when we get to sound here. I wish that if I could wish a couple of things about this, I would wish that it was like higher quality materials used in the build, and I wish that they had some sort of swappable pads, like I could use some sort of velour pads on it. Would be a couple of things that I would wish for this headphone. But again, keep in mind, I don't know, I think this was like maybe around $300 new. I bought it for, I don't know, $150, $130, something like that. So not very much money at all, considering, you know, what you're getting here. And like I said, I think it's about the cheapest electrostatic headphone you can get. So how does it sound then? Well, if you've heard anything about electrostatic drivers, you've probably heard, you know, they tend to be bass light. That's true here. They tend to be very good at micro details, and kind of have like a light airiness quality to them. These have the light kind of delicate quality to them, but because of the way it's like semi-open in these pleather pads, there isn't, my perception is there isn't like a lot of air or space in the sound, and I think that's really where this falls flat of my expectations of it. Detail is pretty good, and resolution is pretty good. The imaging not so great, and the soundstage is pretty small. And again, I just can't emphasize enough like how surprised I was at how kind of closed in these sound, and how things, because of the speed of electrostatic drivers, which is kind of what they're known for, there isn't a lot of like reverb and decay, so things like that, they end kind of abruptly, which is a strange, I don't know, it's just strange to have things be kind of like so delicate and fast, but then to end so abruptly and to sound so kind of dead and closed in, is what I would say. I really wonder what, you know, a set of like velour pads on these would sound like. I would guess that they would probably kill any bass response, which is maybe why they didn't go that route, because again, the bass response that's here is already very light and doesn't extend like hardly at all. It's not that there isn't any bass, but it's, I mean, it's pretty light. Like, I think, I'm not a bass head, but even I was wanting for most tracks. So here's where, is it worth trying for, you know, $150 or less if you want to just try an electrostatic headphone? I think it probably is, if you can find one, you know, that's good shape and you can try it for a little bit and then maybe sell it again, right? I don't think this is probably like a long-term staple in many people's collections. Like, I don't see it there. And the reason why is because planar magnetics, you can get really good ones for not a lot of money anymore. So this one right here is probably like my favorite cheapest planar magnetic that I've got, and this is the 5XX. So I bought this for maybe like 150 bucks. Now I've got a 400i band on it, but the thing is I feel like this, all the things that I kind of like about the electrostatic, the Monoprice electrostatic system, this does like better. And so this is still very fast, it's very detailed, but it's got better imaging, it's more open, the timbre is more natural, where I feel like the Monoprice is like a little bit thin and dead sounding. This is much more open and natural sounding. The imaging is much better, the soundstage is larger. This is like a very open sounding headphone, and it has that fast detail retrieval, but it still has like some, like a more natural decay and reverb and things like that. So all of this being said is like, I think all of this sounds really good, even just coming out of, right, the Apple dongle. So this is even without any sort of amplification, whereas, you know, you would think that the Monoprice would have a leg up because it comes with its own little kind of like Energizer amp, but I didn't think so. And then so you kind of make some comparisons. Like I wanted to make a few comparisons here. So then I thought, well, it'd be kind of equal to try these out on the full of 4, because then this would be getting, you know, at least somewhat of a decent DAC going into it, and then the 5XX was also be getting some sort of an amplification. So it running through these, even like the 5XX even pulls away a little bit more. You put them on nicer gear, so I could plug you know, the Monoprice into, say, like my Bifrost 2. I don't feel like you gain a whole lot. Like it doesn't really scale. Whereas the 5XX, when you plug it into something like, you know, the Bifrost and the Singzer, well, then this even comes more to life, right? And you get more detail and more resolution and better spatial presentation. So I would have a very difficult time recommending the Monoprice setup to anybody over something like the 5XX that I feel like is just all around better and just easier to use. That being said, you know, if you want to dip your toe into an electrostat and just kind of get a taste of what an electrostatic is like, I think the Monoprice maybe shows you that without really giving you like a good example of it, you know? So the 95X system from Koss that I had, I remember that being very open, very fast, very detailed, still maybe a little bass light, but and still maybe had a timbre that wasn't quite as full in the mid-range as I would want. But I do remember that being a very, very clean and fun to listen to headphone. Whereas the Monoprices, you know, things sound okay from them, but again, just that closed-in dead sound really kind of spoiled it for me. Whereas I feel like the 95X, you know, it's open, and I feel like that headphone like imaged super well. Like listening to acoustic live albums with that headphone was really, really fun. I remember specifically an NPR Tiny Desk concert. I'll link it below. I can't remember exactly who it was. It was some dude playing the piano. I should know his name, but anyway, I was like brought to tears when I was listening to that concert on the 95X, and I'm not like a crier usually, but just it moved me. And I remember listening to also Chris Cornell's live album and on the 95X and thought that was phenomenal as well. So the 95X I could see being worth trying out if you really want to try like an electrostat, right? This one is just, it's more of a novelty. Just if you see it randomly for cheap like I did, you know, you may want to pick it up and just give it a shot, right? Yeah, so I think that's gonna do it. You know, I appreciate, as always, I appreciate you being here. You know, impressions, comments, alternative opinions, all that stuff, you know, feel free to leave down below. If you are into more headphone content and you want more of that, consider subscribing to the channel. I'll have, as usual, I'll have more of that coming in the near future. And, you know, if you like maybe not always getting the latest and greatest stuff, but you're okay with some of these more obscure things, like this is often how I operate, right? Like I just kind of wait and browse the forums, and if something interesting comes up at a good deal, like I snatch it and just to try it out, to, you know, see what it's like for me, and then I'll give you those impressions. So if you're into that, you know, again, consider subscribing and sticking around. With all that being said, I thank you again, and I will see you in the next one.